Good Thursday afternoon, GF 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us a little later in the show. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com will join us. We'll talk about the Cavs getting ready to host the Nuggets to get the final 21 games of the regular season underway. But we begin by talking Browns. The Browns made it official. They have a new special teams coordinator and assistant head coach. Mary Kay Cabot tweets out, they have hired Bubba Ventrone, special teams coordinator and assistant head coach, former special teams coordinator for the Colts, and also former player and special teams captain for the Cleveland Browns. Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy, the timing of it kind of makes it seem to me like they had an idea if this guy became available, they were going to hire him. He became available because the Colts got a new head coach after the Super Bowl.
No, this is a home run. You look at his special teams grades throughout 2018 since he's taken over that role in Indy. He's been, I think he was 12th his first year and then in the top 5 the next 3 years. So, again, it's special teams coaching. I'm careful to assign genius to special teams coaches because it really is just like, hey, just figure out these things. But he's able to figure those things out. And also it takes another thing I think that was on a lot of people's list. This is a former player, right? And I think we needed that in the leadership of this team where we had that diversity of way of leadership, right? Because the last regime was strictly dudes who kind of came from the same background as Kevin Stefanski. But what we found out is that player relationships started to break down. And that was really the biggest problem the Browns had when you talk about the coaching staff. And now you have a guy like Bubba Ventrone in a big spot there for the Browns as special teams coordinator. So he's able to add some insight. You have somebody with a ton of NFL experience in there is Jim Schwartz. So if we're talking about this from when the season ended and what we wanted from the changes in the coaching staff position, I cannot say I'm disappointed.
Yeah, everybody kind of identified the two areas that they have identified, being special teams coordinator and defensive coordinator, and so the changes were made. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Everybody said I was crazy when I said that Kevin Stefanski needed to take a page out of Sean McVay's book, which was replace his entire staff like he did in 2020. And now that he did, I think that I feel way more confident with the hire of Bubba Ventrone, with the hire of Jim Schwartz, with AVP. Those are really key coordinators that I think will help us get to our goal. Now the next step is the players need to execute that plan. You can have the best team in the world, but if players don't execute, there's really no point in doing anything. There's really no point in making all these hires. So we have to make sure, players are ready to execute week 1. So let's go.
And that's the way Bubba Ventrone has been received by and large. Folks that pay attention to such things. I remember Bubba Ventrone as a special teams player. I am told he is a guy that is very vocal and yells, similar to a Bill Cowher when he was special teams coordinator for the Browns, an active guy. And you want diversity with personalities on the coaching staff, and it seems like that's the way the Browns are going.
Well, I think the best way to put it, because he's not like a vitriol scream Greg Williams guy, where Greg Williams was like screaming like just insane stuff on the sideline, right? He's passionate. You'll see him yell, but it's passion, right? There's a separation between yelling because you're mad and just yelling because you're excited. He's more or less that. And when you talk to NFL players and ask them what they feel like special teams coaches, what's the skill that they need to be successful, and even if you ask somebody who, the most famous special teams coach in this division is probably John Harbaugh, right? Longtime special teams coach for him. He's been a longtime head coach now of the Baltimore Ravens. And what is the one thing that they all say these guys need to be able to do is manage relationships? Because one, don't nobody want to play special teams, man? Like, nobody in the NFL dreamed of playing special teams, right? Like, that is an actual reality when we talk about this. And it is your job as Bubba Ventrone to say, hey, man, I know you were first team all-conference. Maybe you were first, second team all-American. But I'm going to need you to come down here and be this gunner, man. Like that's not an easy conversation to have And it requires a lot of people skills in order to get that done. And what Bubba Ventrone shows me through how his body of work is that he's able to do those things, right? He's able to manage those relationships and be able to handle these things. And that's the one thing this coaching staff has lacked as a unit is when things break down, when guys aren't happy with their role, how do we communicate to them? Maybe he could be a voice in the room that can help with that communication, because I think that means everything. Because every year, this is the one thing against Stefanski, right, and the staff that he had. Every year we could point to there was some breakdown when it comes to how somebody felt about their role, right? 2020, Odell still had issues with his role, even though the team was good. 2021, Odell, Baker Mayfield, like you pick a player. He had an issue with his role that was unresolved in 2021. And in 2022, obviously, Jadeveon Clowney's the one that comes to mind. But it's a constant, right? Guys who aren't happy with what they're being asked to do, and they aren't being able to handle these things in the building because they don't have anybody with those skills to be able to handle that. Now you have Bubba Ventrone who's like, hey, man, I did this transition before. Like, I understand where you're at. I'm a former player. I played in the league for a while. I'm able to come to your level on this. And I think that's something that they were sorely lacking, because if you look at that coaching staff, who was the former player that played recently in that coaching staff before they hired Bubba Ventrone, right? Like, I think Stump Mitchell might have legitimately been the closest thing to a former player in there. And Stump Mitchell, no disrespect, played in the 80s. I think even before, he was on the expansion Cardinals, which many people might not even recognize that that's an expansion team. Like, it's a long time ago that he was in the league, and it's a different league than what happens now. And I think that perspective was sorely missing from this locker room. And it made me feel old when I realized that Bubba Ventrone had not played in the NFL in almost 10 years, because 2014 is 10 years ago, almost. That one made me feel old. But he is somebody who has recent experience in these locker rooms that understands, hey, this is how you got to handle this with players. Maybe we should take this approach instead of this one, because what we've been doing has not worked. So this isn't just for special teams with me. While I love this hire, I think this adds an element to the coaching staff that's gonna help mitigate one of their biggest problems they've had over the years. Yeah,
I would agree. And the other thing, Bubba Ventrone made a living on special teams. He was special teams captain with the Browns, so that gives him even a little bit more. He can speak of you can stay in the league by playing special teams. All right. Defensive line is an area of concern for the Browns without question. This is from Pro Football Focus. The top 25 best edge defenders from the 2022 season. Myles Garrett, number 1, 92.5. Number 11 on this list is Brandon Graham from the Philadelphia Eagles. 34 years old, 89.8 is PFF grade. That's a guy that is likely to become available, who has a very high opinion of Jim Schwartz. We've heard him talk about Jim Schwartz. Number 24 on this list, another guy we've talked about a little bit. Arden Key, 81.3, ended up being Jacksonville's second most productive pass rusher. So, again, Quincy, when we've talked, these are two guys that we have talked about, the Browns potentially having an interest that aren't likely to make, the $20 million. They're going to be in the affordable range. So those are two guys that I would keep an ear out for, with the Browns being active with, especially Graham. Graham had some really good things to say about Schwartz.
I wouldn't be surprised, because Brandon Graham seems like, again, every coordinator, like, they want to bring in one of their guys, right? Like, this is my guy, I'm bringing him in. And that's kind of what it is. Now, interestingly enough, with Joe Woods, I don't think he had any guy. Like, I think Troy Hill might have been his attempt of bringing in a guy, but no real guy for him, because he hadn't had that history of being a coordinator. But yeah, Brandon Graham seems like that, and then I would say Arden Key's a strong candidate there. I like that combination there. If you add those two plus Myles, maybe even a D tackle in between that, you have a good chance of having a good defensive line if you draft correctly.
All right, let's take a look. Top free agents, CBS Sports, and I'm going to throw a couple more names at you. So these are the top 100. 31, Dalvin Tomlinson. 32, Obo Okenrakwo from the Texans. We move down. Yannick Ngakoue at number 51. Indianapolis Colts, pure pass rusher. That's a name to keep an eye on. 54, Onyemata from the Saints and 84, Sheldon Rankins from the Jets. So you look down that, and again, we're not spending $20 million on any of these guys, but those are guys that are going to be in that mid-range to affordable range. Do any of those guys perk your ears up that you think the Browns should go after?
Oh yeah, Dalvin Thomas is a guy I've been having my eye on for a couple of years now. Just a big kind of run stuff and proven guy. He's not going to be anybody that you're going to buy the jersey to, but he's going to be somebody who's going to be a very solid player to hold it down. And let's say you're betting on the upside of Perion Winfrey, you're betting on the upside of some guys you're bringing in. I think Dalvin Thomas is somebody you can have in there just to be a safe bet. Like, hey, we know we can put him in there and we're gonna be okay. And then we can figure out the other position. So I like that. I like Dalvin Thomas a lot. I think he is at the point of his career where he could just plug in and play, be good with anybody.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little bit about offense. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. We're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Ron from Cleveland. My question today is, with Deshaun Watson at quarterback, do you feel like the Browns will start using him more in the shotgun position? Because that's basically where he's most dangerous at, in my opinion. But if they do that, will that diminish Nick Chubb's importance in the offense? Because it seemed like last year, every time they went under center and Nick was in there, they'd get a handoff and they had the box stacked on him. So with a new offense, will he be as important to the Browns as he once was, as we kind of motor on away from being a run-first team and maybe a pass-first team or a quarterback scramble team? So just wondering what you guys think about that. Love your show. And as always, Cleveland Browns forever. Roof.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, I think it's kind of I think Nick Chubb will be an important part of the offense. They'll figure out the shotgun. What he's going to see more as they throw more is less 8 and 9 men boxes. So the shotgun, you're going to have to spread out and cover, because the Browns have somebody that can distribute the ball. That's going to open things up for Nick Chubb.
Well, the answer to the question, is Nick Chubb going to be as important to the offense anymore? It's just no, because Deshaun Watson's the best player on the offense now. And that's no disrespect to Nick Chubb, but there's a reason why Nick Chubb is not getting the $230 million guaranteed, and that's mainly because of the position he plays. And also, Deshaun's very good at that position. And if this works out for the Browns and Deshaun's living up to his potential, you're going to want Deshaun to throw the ball more. I mean, I think we felt that somewhat at the end of the year, where we were like, oh, it seems like they move the ball better when we throw it more. I felt like that was happening at the end of the year. So it's just going to be a transition. Yeah, they will go in the shotgun. And going in the shotgun, some of that trade-off means that Nick Chubb, he's not going to get the carries that you think that he got last year. Also, Nick Chubb's got to learn how to be effective out of the gun, right? And I believe Nick Chubb's going to be able to make that adjustment. He's a top 5 running back. There's no reason he shouldn't be able to make that adjustment. Guys run out the shotgun all the time, and he ran out the shotgun all the time at UGA. So this is nothing new to him. Is Nick Chubb going to be as important? No, Deshaun Watson's going to be the most important thing, but let's also talk about what that means, which is if Deshaun Watson is who we think he is, which is what he was in 2020, then this is a team that can compete with Kansas City and Cincinnati for AFC championships, and Super Bowls. If Nick Chubb's the best player on your offense, unfortunately, we saw where that takes you. It takes you to the second round, and you're losing to Chad Henne anyways. So, yes, is that true? But for the ceiling on this team to get higher, it has to change. You just can't get that far. Look, how far has Tennessee gotten behind Derrick Henry? I think they got to the second round once. It just is what it is. You can't go that far just running the ball in the AFC, especially where every team seems to have a great quarterback, and then two teams have great quarterbacks, like great quarterbacks, and then one team might have the greatest quarterback to ever play all time. Like, it just is what it is. You gotta have one of those dudes.
All right, these are going to be head-scratching rankings. CBS Sports ranked every quarterback from 2022. They ranked Deshaun Watson 35th. Now, some of the names ahead of him, like in the same area code, 27, Kenny Pickett. 30, Sam Darnold. 31, Davis Mills. 34, Baker Mayfield. You see Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Marcus Mariota. I get that the 6 games that he played were not great. But how did he come up with these rankings?
When people don't like you, the second they get any inch to go all the way on you in a negative direction, they will take it, right? Think about this with anything. If there's a comedian that people decide they don't like, the first time they tell an unfunny joke, we see this with LeBron, right? When people decided that they did not like LeBron, the inch, when you give them an inch, they will run a mile with it. And that's just what's happened with Deshaun Watson. He gave them an inch, right? He did not play at an a Pro Bowl MVP type level those last 6 games. It's undeniable that he was not that good. But like, let's be real, we know he wasn't that bad though. Like 35 is crazy. Especially when you see who's over him. Like Carson Wentz, like he was better statistically than most of those dudes there. But again, when people don't like you for whatever reason it is, good reason, bad reason, whatever reason it is, it's gonna affect their ability to be objective, because people are making these lists and people are not objective. No matter how objective people trying to act like they are, people aren't objective, right? Like, that's just is what it is. Human nature. You're not going to be objective. Like, if I have a son who's playing football, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, he doesn't like. I'm going to see the best positive light for that person because I am invested in that, right? People are invested in disliking him for reasons that we all know, and that's what they're going to do. He gave him an inch. They run it with the mile. That's kind of how this goes. Like, even when we bring up somebody like Baker Mayfield, right? How often does it happen where if Baker Mayfield gives you an inch in a positive direction, people run all the way and be like, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame? Or if he gives you an inch in a negative direction, people go all the way and say he was never good to begin with. He was this, and act like he never did anything in the NFL, right? These things happen when people decide they don't like you. All of a sudden, any inch becomes a license to run in whatever direction that they feel like is necessary to fit their agenda. This will all be corrected if he plays better, because you cannot just say he's the 35th ranked quarterback if he has 28 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. You're going to lose credibility. But there is a line there, right? And until he gets past that line to where it's undeniable that you cannot lie about him, this is what's going to happen to him, right? People are going to try to find a slant. And even if he does have success, they're going to try to find a reason why it's not that impressive and all of that and this, because this is kind of what we're going to be living with him. I mean, to be fair, like Big Ben dealt with this too after his whole situation where, anytime he had an inch, people ran with it. So it's just, this is his lot,
All right, I know you've done a film breakdown of this. What did you see from Deshaun Watson that was good? What did you see that was bad? Kind of a
when I
long
watch
line.
his games, like on tape, and like it's kind of the same effect, right? I heard so much about how horrible that Pittsburgh game, and I remember feeling like the Pittsburgh game was so bad. Then I watched it back on tape, and I was like, man, for a game that's bad, he has like 12 highlights in here I've never seen a quarterback in a Browns uniform do, right? Like that's the part that gets lost in this, is even in his bad games, he has moments where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, we understand why we traded those picks for you. The improvisational ability, the ability to just shake sacks, the ability just not to go down, all that stuff is still there. he just looked like a dude who was not super comfortable in the offense that he was, and given the circumstances that he stepped in, I can understand why that would happen. A lot of this is going to be an adjustment for Kevin Stefanski as much as it is an adjustment for Deshaun Watson. But what I saw was a quarterback that once he gets back to his element and he gets a whole offseason, is probably going to be pretty good.
All right, what do they need to add to make him elite? What elements can Kevin Stefanski add, even personnel or whatever, that can take him back to the level we need him to be at?
You know, it's interesting, right? Because we have all these conversations about like, oh, what does Deshaun Watson need? He needs the speed guy. He needs that. But then you hear the reports that who does Deshaun Watson want? It's DeAndre Hopkins. Now, look, they might not get DeAndre Hopkins, but let's think about that. Why does he want DeAndre Hopkins? Why does he think that that's going to be what takes him to the next level? Because DeAndre Hopkins is not what everybody is saying that he needs. Everybody is saying that he needs a speed guy. Deshaun is saying, I want DeAndre Hopkins. Why? Because I think Deshaun knows I don't really need a speed guy. You know what I need? A 50-50 ball guy. I need a guy who I can reliably throw it up to in the red zone. They're going to come down with it because that is what DeAndre Hopkins does. That's the kind of guy you need to get. Somebody with ball skills in the air, somebody who can turn around and just get one, pluck one, right? Like if Garrett Wilson was coming out in this draft, like that would be the dude that you would want to put next to Deshaun Watson, right? Because that's a 50-50 ball guy. Like Mike Williams. These are the guys, if you look at Deshaun Watson's success, yes, Will Fuller is there, but Will Fuller wasn't the main guy. It was always DeAndre Hopkins. When you look at Clemson, who was the main guy that got all the love in Clemson? It was Mike Williams. Mike Williams not a speed guy. Mike Williams a 50-50 ball guy. That's what Deshaun needs. Deshaun likes to put the ball up and play and let athletes make plays on the ball, and you don't have that on the roster. Like David Njoku has an iffy history at doing that. We know that Donovan Peoples-Jones is a spectacular catch guy, but not a 50-50 ball guy. Same thing with Amari Cooper. Spectacular catch guy, not a 50-50 ball guy. He wants the guy that he can feel like, hey, if I'm in trouble, they can improvise. I can get a 50-50 ball to him, and we're going to be all right. And that's the piece that they're missing. And I can point to the evidence that if you look at who Deshaun Watson's asking for, there's been no credible report that he wants Brandon Cooks. It's been, I want D-Hop. Think about why he wants a dude like D-Hop, and think about what he's had his whole career, and then you'll find out what he feels like he needs to be successful. And I feel like he knows pretty well what he needs to be successful.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. 3 Browns that you shouldn't give up on. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns Coverage. Quincy, I know on your show you've addressed 3 guys that you think folks shouldn't quite give up on just yet. Take us through that and what your thoughts were there.
Yeah, see, I think there are some Browns on here that people are going to be quick to give up on. I think one of them was Jordan Elliott, who, you know, people are going to be quick to kind of boot on. But I think, hey, you have to consider that if we're going to say coaching was a problem, we have to also consider and extend that grace to the players, where it's like, if coaching was a problem for us watching the product, it probably was a problem for them playing, right? Their development. And Jordan Elliott, he's only known life in the NFL with Joe Woods as his defensive coordinator. And maybe there's something that Jim Schwartz can unlock in him that's going to be fine, that's going to get him up to a better level of player. Nick Harris is another guy that I think can step it up because he was beating out Ethan Posick in camp before he got that injury. Now he's going to be coming off a knee injury. I still would advise drafting center, especially if the center out of Michigan is available in the third round. That brother is really good. But if you just end up with Nick Harris, I think he'll be fine for a year, and I think he could be the starter this year and be fine. I don't think we would be complaining about it. He probably won't get an extension, but he'll be fine. Harrison Bryant is another one I think is interesting because I think he's finally going to be forced to move into a role that he's going to be more suited for, because when he came into the league, we saw him as the second tight end, and we thought that he would bulk up and be able to become that. But what we found out is that he cannot bulk up. He's going to be this kind of wiry build. That's just who he is. And that very much limits him when he has to go into like these 13 personnels, 12 personnels a lot of the time. But if he can get out there and get wide as a tight end instead of having to be an inline blocker or start with the inline chip, I think he's going to be a much better receiver of the football and much more of a useful player and much more in line with what we saw his first training camp, where he really turned some eyes versus what we've seen over the last 2 years. So those are guys who are on the verge of almost being out of town that I would say hold up on. There might be something there.
All right, fair enough. Yahoo did a mock draft, 3-round mock draft. So the Browns at 42, they had taking Pittsburgh defensive lineman Calijah Kancey. Now, he is a 6-foot, 280-pound defensive tackle, 14 and a half sacks in his career, 27 and a half tackles for loss. Knock on him, he's hit and miss as a run defender. And at that 6 foot, 280, maybe a little undersized as a D tackle. However, the NFL scouting comp on him was John Randall. And if you can get John Randall at number 42, I think Jim Schwartz would be pretty happy with that. Your thoughts on Kancey?
I get nervous whenever somebody gets comped to like a John Randall because there was a reason nobody saw John Randall coming, because to be John Randall, like, and this happens when we comp anybody to Tom Brady, we comp anybody to Drew Brees, right? What made those dudes special was nothing that they were born with and everything that they've developed over the years when it comes to mental fortitude and just like pure insaneness about the sport of football that like is just not common, right? Drew Brees is a maniac about how hard he works. John Randall, legitimate maniac. And then same thing with Tom Brady. Like, these are guys who don't have normal mental processes. So if you look at a guy and say, hey, he physically reminds me of John Randall. Well, John Randall was undrafted, right? Like he was not a spectacular prospect coming out. What allowed him to stick in the league was that he was just his absolute ferocious mindset that he had for the game of football. And if you give me John Randall without the John Randall in the mind, you ain't got John Randall. You got Dave Campbell or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have that guy. So I get really nervous when I hear stuff like that because it tells me that you think this guy is limited in traits, but there's something you feel about him. And I can't go off of something that you feel about him when I don't know that man. Like, that man is a stranger to me. So I get nervous when I hear stuff like that. I need to see it. I need to see it in the Senior Bowl. I need to see it in practice, like in all of that, in order to just go with it.
All right, fair enough. Third round at number 98. Yahoo has Browns going wide receiver Jayden Reed. 4'4". Reports are he plays a little bit faster than his time. Had a huge year at Michigan State as a junior. Production dropped a little bit as a senior. Your thoughts on Jayden Reed?
Ain't no way the Browns taking 2 picks this early and not selecting one dude from the SEC or the South. That just isn't how this front office does things. Like, I don't think we've ever done that, right? Like, I think every single second-round pick first and second and third round has had like one dude from the South. I'll be very surprised if this next pick isn't an SEC guy. But, I think there are better wide receivers that you could get there. I think if you're going to go wide receiver, the spot to go wide receiver is honestly in the second round, and the spot to go defensive tackle is honestly in the third round. because I would rather go after somebody like a Marvin Mims, who have a great level of confidence that he's going to be good in year one. Or if you want to go after somebody like a Tyler Scott or somebody like that, I think that's going to be more fruitful for you. Wide receivers, you don't really want to be digging around in the third round. The second round is really the latest you want to go for a speed guy. So I would flip this positionally, because I think you're getting I don't think you're getting much better defensive tackles in the second round than you are in the third round, and I think you're getting much worse wide receivers in the third round than you are in the second round.
All right, tell us about the Michigan center that you like so much. I think you called him the next Alex Mack.
I think he could be the next Alex Mack, but it's Osagun Oluwatimi. He played in Michigan. He's played at 3 colleges. He started off at Air Force, went to Virginia Tech, and then played at Michigan. I believe he was All-American at 2 different schools, Virginia, and Michigan, and he was definitely all-conference everywhere he played. So that means this dude has plugged and played in like 3 different systems in his college career and has been really, really good in that time. So that tells me NFL readiness, ability to learn a new offense and be able to learn a new protection scheme and be fine. He's going to be fine because he's done that before. Now, he's a year older than the rest of the graduating class because he is a grad transfer, but I think he's well worth it. I think you could plug him in and he could really push Nick Harris for playing time. Also, he might just start, right? And if you get those 4 years of rookie contract control on a really, really good center. I watch him against Ohio State. He's really good run blocker, really good pass blocker. I'm surprised there's not more hype on him. I guess since he's a center, nobody's really talking about him, or since he's moved schools so many times. But again, how often do you hear about a guy transferring? And it's not because he wasn't getting playing time the other place. It's just because he felt like it was too easy, right? Which had to be the case in Virginia because he was first team all ACC. Like, there was no reason for him to transfer. He wasn't getting replaced or anything. He just went to Michigan and decided, oh, yeah, that was too easy. I go to Michigan. He's first team All-American, I think, or first and second team All-American, and then first team Big Ten. And by the way, watch him against Penn State or Ohio State, 2 best schools in that conference. He dominated. He's good. Like, I have no fear that if you draft this dude, he's gonna start at center within a year at the very least. He's a good player.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break. Bleacher Report with a dream trade for the Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. This from the Bleacher Report. Dream trade scenario for every team. For the Browns, they trade for Denico Autry, the Titans, and they give up a middle round pick. Autry is 32, obviously has played for Jim Schwartz. You see what it would cost the Browns to potentially get him, mid-round pick. Your thoughts on going and getting Autry? You see 17 sacks, 54 quarterback pressures over the last couple of years. So Autry has been effective. 32 is getting up there in age.
Yeah, but the Browns are at a point in time where it's like, hey, if you could play for the next couple of years, we're fine with you being old, right? Like, we're not really if building for the future at this point. Like, it's going to be a lost cause because if they don't get to the playoffs this year, there's no future. There's a soft rebuild happening here. I don't know what his contract number is. I think that would be the only thing really stopping them from doing this trade. But if you can get Denico Autry for what I would assume would probably be like a 5th or 6th round pick, I would do it. Now, they say middle round pick. I don't think a 2nd or 3rd round pick is going to be something that they do. He's at a base salary of $6.7 million. I'm looking here on Spot Track. So, yeah, I would say a 5th round pick. Maybe you could squeeze a 4th out of Andrew Berry, or maybe a 4th next year. Probably a 4th next year, a 4th and a 6th or something like that. Some kind of combination of a next year pick and this year pick. I think that would be fine for the Browns because, again, they need to cash in some of these assets for the future for now because they need to win now.
Yeah.
Because ain't no rebuild if they win. Ain't no build for the future if they don't win now, because it might be everybody could be gone if they don't win this year. So, the 32 years old, it used to not make sense. Browns used to not go with the free agents that were over 26, right? That was a thing for a couple of years. Now they need to get some of these older guys, because they need guys who can step in and play right now and add that beloved leadership, right? Add that experience and leadership to the locker room that everybody loves.
All right, before I let you go, what are the positions that you think need upgrading the most? And if you're going to trade to acquire a position of need, who do you think is most likely the guy that the Browns trade?
If the position that needs the most, I would say, is defensive tackle. I think that's the obvious one that everybody would go with. I might throw in there as a wild card. Maybe the offensive line needs a little bit of retooling, because a lot of things kind of fell apart, especially on that right side of the offensive line between Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin, and the center position, which is not going to be the same as last year. Like, those three guys just really did not have a great year outside of Ethan Posick. But if I had to get rid of one player to get one, and thinking, hey, I need to get a good player and give up a good player in order to get a good player, it would probably be, I think Martin Emerson would be preferable to give up if I'm the Browns. I think more teams would be interested in Greg Newsome. I think Greg Newsome would command a higher return. Now, I would rather give up Martin Emerson because, again, I think Greg Newsome's the better player, but I think teams would rather want Greg Newsome between the choice of the two.
Yeah, my thought would be either Wyatt Teller or Greg Newsome and you gotta, with that offensive line, pretty soon having four guys that are making double-digit millions, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, it's just this is why I think they're going to draft a lot of offensive linemen in this draft, and the next drafts coming up, because they cannot afford to have that line be that expensive. Again, it made sense when Baker was on a rookie deal and you were doing the rookie deal quarterback thing, but now that you have a quarterback that you're paying, it's not going to be that easy. You gotta be able to just plug and play guys. Have some guys, some tet poles at the position, right? Left tackle maybe, center. Well, you got to pick where you want to have your tet poles. Right now it's two guard positions, and then build around that. But you got to find your beams and then build the drywall between that, because that's what you're going to have to put up on that offensive line. Right now, a lot of structure. Now, but in the future, going to have to put some drywall up and let those support beams hold it up.
I'm with you. Quincy Carrier, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
No problem. Y'all have a great day.
All right, Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. Great stuff. Untitled, unfiltered Browns coverage. We're going to step aside, turn our attention to the Cavaliers, getting ready to start the post-All-Star game against the Nuggets tonight. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers getting ready to start the second half of the season. Donovan Mitchell was homecoming as he went home to Salt Lake City, where he played for so long with the Jazz. He was mic'd up for the All-Star game.
Hey, Kai, you and Ja. How you doing? Everything good?
Yeah, doing well. How about you?
I'm doing well. Can't complain. How y'all doing? Y'all good? How y'all doing? Good to see y'all. Good to see y'all. Good to see y'all. Well, how you? Good up, baby. Good. Good basketball. Good basketball. Ah, that would have been crazy. Come on. Come on. Yep. 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 There we go. Yep. I'm not MVP. Come on. Yep. Yep. There we go. There we go. Oh, we out. Hey, shout out to the GOAT, Asia Wilson right here. Woo. Let's go. Come on. I told you. I told you. Yep. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Sam, you saw kind of the reception he got. Also important to note, he was elected vice president of the Players Union, a guy that's really well thought of in league circles, and you could see the reception that he got back at Salt Lake City.
Yeah, not a big surprise. I think anybody who follows the Cavs and has been paying attention to the way Donovan Mitchell carries himself and approaches the games, sees that he's not only a professional, but, you know, a good guy to have around. And I really think, you know, being traded from the Jazz and then to go back to Salt Lake City and get that reception really shows you, you know, a lot about him. So I think it was nice for him to not only go back and play in the All-Star game, but probably to get it out of the way. You know, not sure what the reception would be. Obviously, the Cavs played out there earlier. Got a pretty positive response, but seemed to really ignite and you know, the crowd really seemed to enjoy him being back one more time this year.
21 games is all the Cavs have left, so the All-Star break is second half, more like the last third of the schedule. Nuggets in town. JB Bickerstaff on the difference that games after the All-Star break seem to have.
It always seems that after the All-Star break, you know, there's a ramp up in intensity and obviously the importance of what it feels like each game is. You know, we try to preach that a game in December is just as important as a game in, you know, February, March, April, but when you see the finish line and you see where, you know, teams are and what they're fighting for, it just seems to be a little more real. So, you know, the expectation is for everybody that, you know, the intensity ramps up a little bit and, you know, the competition level raises as well.
What's the focus then, I guess, as you guys are ramping back up, getting back into it now, like when you've had a chance to sort of think about where you're at?
It's continuing to focus and pay attention to the details. That's, to me, you know, what separates teams and understanding the importance of what a mistake means, what a turnover can mean, how important every single possession is, and paying attention to details so that you can win every single possession or as many of them as you can.
Sam, as he describes that, it occurs to me he's describing playoff basketball.
Yeah, then that's, you know, this is really the time where you ramp up for that. Okay, you've got, 21 games left. This is where you start preparing and getting ready to for the big stuff in the postseason. Now, theoretically, you want to play well enough to give yourself kind of that window, the last 2 or 3 games of the season where you can rest your guys. We saw last year Cavs could not do that. Most teams in the Eastern Conference could not do that because the race was so tight. This year the race is tight, but at some point I suspect that the Cavs will kind of lock in that 4th seed. So if they play the way Coach Bickerstaff was talking about and show that intensity, particularly defense, making every possession count, as you said, Dave, very similar to playoff basketball. If they can lock in and do that, they may not have to do it for the full 21 games. Perhaps you get a little bit of a rest there, maybe games 18, 19, 20, 21. But you have to make things happen and play well, win some of these games at home that you have coming up, and take care of business that way. Your West Coast trips are out of the way. So now is really your chance to – teams that are tanking are going to go into full tank mode right now. So it should be a little bit easier when you face those teams. Teams that aren't tanking, though, that are going to be in the playoffs, are going to really bring the intensity here for these last 3 or 4 weeks of the regular season.
And, there are certain games that will be challenging, but by and large, the 21 games, they should do well. The Cavs should do well in those final 21.
Yeah, I think last year, I'm not positive on this, but they were like 9-14 after the All-Star break. Now, granted, they had the injury to Jared Allen. They had Karis LeVert was hurt a little bit after the All-Star break. This year, they're going back or coming out of the All-Star break in a much better spot. Right now, everybody's healthy, and they seem connected, just seem in a better spot. And then, of course, this year they have Donovan Mitchell, too. So, I would suspect that they will have a stronger finish than the, kind of struggling that they did there toward the end of last year and then getting in the play-in tournament. They'll be able to avoid the play-in tournament this year and just get a regular first-round series, which is nice.
All right, so this is from Clutch Points. 4 bold predictions for the Cavaliers. Number 4, Cavs post first 50-win season since 2018. Number 3, Evan Mobley averages a double-double post-All-Star break. Number 2, Donovan Mitchell earns All-NBA team spot for the first time. And number 1, Cavs make it to the second round of the 2023 playoffs. When you look at those, which of those do you think are kind of slam dunks most likely to happen? Mobley has really, if you've been paying attention, Evan Mobley's offensive game is really starting to take shape last 15 games, 10, 15 games.
Yeah, for sure. He's starting to get, you can tell he's starting to get more comfortable playing with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Really, you really are throwing Donovan Mitchell into the mix at the beginning of the year. For a young player like Mobley, that's going to take a little bit of adjusting to, especially when you're a big guy. But he just seems so much more comfortable, has been much more comfortable probably, like you said, Dave, last 15 games, last 2 or 3 weeks. And I would suspect he's going to continue that rise. I don't know if he's going to average a double-double. That's asking a lot of a guy. Maybe he will in these last 21 games. I don't know if he's going to end up with one for the season. But that's great. He's going to come close. The fact that he's even having, or we're even having the conversation that he might, is great. And Donovan Mitchell, another one of those predictions. Yeah, I think there's a good shot that he could make All NBA really by the end of the season for the first time. So I think those 2 are pretty good. If you had asked me probably a month ago, 2 months ago, I would probably say, you know what, I don't think the Cavs are going to get out of the first round, only because they would be facing a Brooklyn team with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant potentially in the first round. Well, guess what? If they face Brooklyn now, they don't have either of those guys. I like the Cavs shot really good now of getting out of the first round because other than Miami, anybody below them is definitely not better than them.
All right, remember that because I'm going to ask you something later in the show about that. But right now, Sam, Amico, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from the newest member of the Cavalier, Danny Green. He's played on 3 NBA championships. What does he need to see from this young team? Sports for CLE will be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Cavs with Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Cavs signed Danny Green shortly before the All-Star break. He's played on 3 NBA championship teams. This is what he said the games after the All-Star break mean and what he needs to see from this young team.
Limiting our mistakes. So right now we're just tuning up, ramping up, and trying to get in a nice little groove, nice little rhythm. But because a lot of these guys don't have it, my job here is to try to give them the best I can of what a playoff-like atmosphere will be like. So that a lot of them don't have that experience, have playoff experience. So we're trying to prepare them for it individually, for myself, and as a group of just holding each other accountable.
Speaking of that experience, what do you feel like separates the good playoff team from the great playoff team, specifically in this post-All-Star stretch?
Discipline. The team that executes the most for the longer part of the game, for the most minutes of the game, is usually the team that wins. Regardless of your experience or not, I feel like this team, they're very smart, high IQ, disciplined team. If we can stay consistent with that and work really hard and execute, I think we give ourselves a chance against anybody.
Sam, Danny Green has instant credibility because of those 3 championships. So he has the attention of his teammates, I'm sure.
Yeah, very much a coach on the floor kind of guy who's been there, done that before. And it was 3 different teams that he's won titles with, which really shows how much he's experienced, playing with Tim Duncan, playing with LeBron James, playing with Kawhi Leonard, with the Raptors when they won a title, so he's really, not only is he a guy who's been on championship teams, but he's experienced a lot, played with a lot of really big names, and comes to kind of almost as that guy who they can respect and admire because he has those rings, whereas guys like Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, they haven't been to the playoffs. Jared Allen's been once with the Nets a couple years ago, and Donovan Mitchell has that playoff experience but has never won a championship. So when you look at their core, the Cavs core, bringing in somebody who's won a championship really counts for a lot. And I think once Danny Green gets his legs under him, he's going to be able to provide more than leadership. He could hit a couple of threes. And you know what? It may only be a couple of threes a game, but when you're in the playoffs, one timely three can be a big deal. And he has hit those before, and that could be a very underrated addition across the NBA this year. Just getting that veteran guy who still has something left and can make shots and is an influence on the younger players on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit a big 3, make the extra pass, the things that you want and need from a young team. Hopefully he brings to that. JB Bickerstaff talked about the expectations for this team.
We're, again, focused on what's here in this building and the conversations that we have. We have high expectations for ourselves, but our expectations are, are we performing the right way and to our standard and what we believe in? If we play the way that we believe we're capable of and play to our values, that's a success for us. And then, the wins and losses come from there. So, our focus is, again, can we be the most competitive team? Can we be the most selfless team? And then, are we learning and growing, understanding the importance of the details and possession by possession in a basketball game?
And again, Sam, what he's saying is you can't look too far ahead. Is what he's saying. You have to live in the present.
Yeah, and it's really stressing the attention to detail. We heard Danny Green say that, attention to detail. And sometimes with a young team, with their stars being younger, that can get away from you a little bit. So I think there's a reason that Coach Bickerstaff and Danny Green and some of the other guys, that's what we keep hearing from them, because that's going to be a really strong message. And Danny Green was right too when he said, look, a young team, just because we're young, it's not really going to matter. We don't have the experience of the other teams. If we out-execute them, it won't matter experience. We saw that a couple years ago with the Atlanta Hawks, a young team at the time, 2 years ago, made a run to the Eastern Conference Finals. Nobody expected that, So, and the nice thing for the Cavs is Boston's obviously very good. Milwaukee's very good. Philadelphia's good. All those teams are veteran teams that have been there before, but they're not this one dominant thing that you're not going to be able to get past if you play like Coach Bickerstaff just said, which is playing the right way, making every possession count, paying attention to detail, doing all those things more than the opponent. You're going to have a shot. So this is a good time, again, these last 21 games, to kind of get that in order and get ready for the second season.
All right, I told you I was going to ask you a question based on the Cavs potentially winning a first-round series. What do you think they need to do in order to win a second playoff series? So that would mean they're going to have to beat either the Celtics, the Bucks, the 76ers, assuming that the top seeds advance. What element, what player, what needs to happen for the young Cavs to beat one of those of the big three?
It's pretty simple. What you're going to need is your role players. They're going to have to – you're going to get what you get all the time. Donovan Mitchell's going to, give you a great all-star effort. Darius Garland's going to give you a borderline all-star effort. Jared Allen's going to do what he does, and he does it very well. Block shots, alter shots. Finish near the basket. Mobley, we can presume, is going to keep improving. So those things you already know. If you're going to win a second-round series, you're going to need probably at least two guys that you're not expecting big games from normally to step up, whether that's Danny Green or Isaac Okoro or Chetty or, Dean Wade, Lamar Stevens. Somebody else is going to have to step up to win those games. Karis LeVert obviously has that potential in terms of scoring. We saw him score 41 against the Celtics early this season to win in Boston. So that's what it's going to take. You don't need Karis LeVert or a role player to score 41, but you're going to need contributions from people outside of your core 4 or 5 guys to have big nights. And, it doesn't have to be scoring, just coming through, whether it's with defense or, making the right play, keeping the ball alive or the offense alive in various ways. So, whatever you can get from your role players, that's what you're going to get. That will propel you out of the second round, should you get there.
Sam Amico, hoopswire.com, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Sam.
All right, Dave, thanks for having me, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Sam Amico, check him out, hoopswire.com. All things Cavs, as well as the NBA. Cavs begin final 21 of the regular season tonight against the Denver Nuggets. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.